Hello, my peaceful and profitable entrepreneurs. Happy Wednesday. It's beautiful here in Charleston. I've got my sweater on. It's nice and chilly. It's my husband's birthday, even though he wants to ignore that. But everyone else in our house is very excited about it. We got like the last caramel cake from Kudzu Bakery, which was exciting because I thought I was going to have to make a caramel cake at the last minute, which is not something that I really had on my list to do. So I'm so excited to have this conversation today. I'm going to pull up my notes. So I titled this, Is Your Fear Out of Control Around the Economy? This is something I think is just very important to speak to. I think it's going to be a great conversation. I've got tons of notes to keep me on track. If you pop in, say hello, leave your comments, leave questions. I'm so happy to have everyone here. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining. As always, I'm doing a giveaway. It's my special 90-minute masterclass about 4 ways to grow your business. Hi. Good to see you. Thanks, Jen, for saying hi. Hi, Lauren. Thanks for hopping on. Anyone who leaves questions or comments today is entered to win that masterclass, and it's very robust. It's 90 minutes. It's like the 4 pillars I come back to about creating more revenue and growing your business. So hi, Cynthia. Thanks for saying hello. So I would love to know if you want to share. If you don't, that's totally fine. But I'd love to know if you have any of this coming up around the economy. Have you been talking to family and friends or clients or team members or whatever? Like, you know, if you want to share, please feel free. As always, you don't have to, but I think it's just kind of a great way to start the conversation. This was something that was coming up with clients I've been talking to and team members, and just I felt like it was very relevant. So if you'd love to share, that would be great. Let us know kind of what's coming up for you. But my coach lovingly challenged me to talk about this because I'm a money person. I'm always talking about numbers. I really want to normalize talking about money and numbers. And so I was kind of like, I'm not an economist, you know, should I be talking about this? But really, like, even economists, they don't know, you know, like there's just so much information out there. And so I really wanted to share my perspective. So we're going to kind of talk about it from the mindset, strategy, organize, and implement lenses, and then give you some definite takeaways so that you can go out and, you know, really kind of rein in the fear and what you're feeling about it. So again, it's important to say that I'm not an economist. My background is in accounting. I majored in accounting. I'm a CPA, those things. And, you know, no one has a crystal ball. So that's the lens that I'm taking this through. I work with, you know, countless business owners behind the scenes, and I see a lot of behind the scenes that most business owners, you know, they only see their business. And so I think I bring a unique perspective. So that's what I want to share today. So I do want to start with kind of like, what are we talking about? So there's a recession. Like, what does that mean exactly? And so that means, you know, by definition, that is decreased GDP for at least 2 consecutive quarters. So, you know, we were already in a recession for 2 quarters or 6 months before they even said it was a recession. So now Q3, they called it that GDP was down. And so that's 3 consecutive quarters. That's 9 months. Basically that's saying, and I looked up, the first quarter of 2020 saw GDP fall for the first time since 2020, whereas consumer spending actually grew 2.7%. So I think that's just an interesting take. It's kind of a weird recession, and we'll kind of talk about that for a second. But lots of mixed opinions on this because there is such a low employment rate. It is kind of a weird recession. Like, that doesn't usually come with a recession. We have, you know, unemployment at 3.5%. That's, you know, when I looked this stuff up, that was a couple weeks ago. So if anything changed, I apologize. But basically they said GDP is close to what the Congressional Budget Office was projecting pre-pandemic. In September, consumer prices were 15% higher than they were on the eve of the pandemic, but average wages were up 14%. So almost matching inflation. So I think that's also very interesting to note. Like I said, we've been in the recession for 9 months now. Modern recessions, that is anything post-World War WW2, last for an average of 10 to 11 months. I kind of saw different data on this, but 10 or 11 months is kind of the average length of a recession. So if we are in month 9, or if October was month 9, then like we're pretty good. We're, you know, on the end of this. Again, no one has a crystal ball. That's just the average. The Great Recession, which I think is what our minds all go to when we think of recession or Great Depression was about 18 months, and the effects of that lasted years after. We had a recession in COVID. So if you had a business in 2020, early 2020, I think February, if you had a business then, you've already been through a recession. That recession was like 2 months. I remember exactly that day and how the market just tanked and everything went a little crazy. And I think, after COVID, everybody was just so excited to kind of get out and about again that everything kind of just exploded and kept going. But I think a recession is just a very normal, natural part of an economy. I've got like multiple examples for this, but I've been in business for 7 years, and my business, the months fluctuate. It's not like I'm always making more money every single month and it keeps going up and it never dips. Like, that's just not reality. That's not business. And it's the same thing for an economy. Like, we can't just keep going higher and higher and higher. And you look at gas and you look at groceries, like those are expensive. And so it would kind of be nice to have a little bit of a cooling off period for that. We look at, nature, and we're always talking about, like, as a woman in my body, like, I'm not always out doing, I have different kind of seasons of being more motivated or needing to rest or going inward or wanting to be more social. Like, that's all just kind of a natural part of nature. Like, flowers aren't always growing all day, every day. The trees aren't always producing leaves, and, we have a hibernation period coming up, and that's just a natural part of nature, and we accept that. And so I think it's so important to see that with the economy as well, and see that that is just a natural part of the economy. And it's kind of a cooling off period. It's kind of a little, mini vacation period. It's really just a great growth opportunity, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I really just want to kind of like normalize a recession. So like I said, I've been in business 7 years. I can think of business owners I've worked with who have been in business 30 years. So to them, they're just kind of like, yeah, like, we've been through this like 10 times already. This is not like anything I'm freaking out about. It's actually, we'll go into this, like a time for opportunity. People can make a lot of money in a recession, and there are definitely people that like grow and thrive in this. And I definitely am not talking about being opportunistic, but we'll get into that. And a quote that I read last night, because sometimes I feel like quotes just jump out at me at the right time for these live streams, was, what was it? I wrote it down. Most people spend their lives running from things that aren't even after them. So I wanted to bring that to this conversation, because we can really build things up in our mind. We can really blow things out of proportion. And I'm not like discounting anyone's experience if you've been affected by it already. But, just to kind of normalize that, like, this is just part of life. It's part of business. It's part of the economy. And we're actually still doing pretty well. So we'll jump into the first piece, which is mindset. So please let me know if you have questions or comments along the way. I'd love to hear from y'all. Like, that's what I'm here for. I want to be, a resource for you. So let me know anything that's coming up for you. But the mindset piece, what comes up for me is check yourself before you wreck yourself. So I think of, Mary Poppins. There was a run on the bank, and pretty soon I'm going to be watching It's a Wonderful Life. And there was a run on the building and loan business there. And those things were from people freaking out. They were in fear and scarcity, and they were not making good decisions on that. And it's kind of funny to watch in a movie, but in real life, when that happens, it really doesn't serve anyone. And so I think coming from a neutral place and looking at things neutrally is the best thing we can do for our business as a business owner. I majorly limit my news consumption. And, this is a result of 2020. Back in 2020, I listened to public radio kind of on the way to pick up my girls and on the way back. So I probably got about 30 minutes of news a day. And that really affected me. Like, I ended up developing scalp psoriasis. I just felt really stressed out every day. Like, even thinking about it now, I get like a visceral reaction. I'm just like, like remembering just hearing everything that was going on all the time. And it was the election, and it was just like, it was a lot of stress on me. And I learned then that, like, I'm really affected by that, and I really have to put myself in a bubble and limit that. It's the same thing with, like, my husband watches Game of Thrones and those kind of shows. And, like, I can't go to sleep after watching those shows. Like, I lay there in bed, I'm just like, that was so weird. How am I going to be able to sleep? Like, stuff just affects me. So I have to put myself in a bubble and really limit my news consumption. And like for when I was researching this, I do very specific looking. Like if I'm gonna go get, news consumption, I'm very specific about where it comes from, and how much I consume. So that's just something I want to share because I think it's just so important to really notice like how much we're consuming. I walk my dog every day, and there are houses that like they always have the news on, and like that would, I think my brain would explode if I did that. I just wouldn't be able to handle it. And so I think it's just a really important point to make, and really make sure that you're limiting what all you're consuming. And I know people hear that and be like, well, isn't that irresponsible? And don't you have a responsibility to stay in the news? And I understand that, and I know that what's responsible for me is to protect myself and protect my mindset and be able to show up in my business and, support my team and my clients, because I, donate money to organizations that I really care about. There are also a couple organizations I was the treasurer for. So I was the treasurer for Arm in Arm, South Carolina. They just, were a group trying to get common sense gun laws here in our state. I was the treasurer for St. Vincent de Paul. So that's a group that helps people who kind of fall on hard times and people who may just have lost a job and they just need like a little bit of short-term help. We were helping them. So I found organizations that I was really passionate about and I really cared about their message, and I volunteered with them. And now I, don't do as much time with those, but I donate money. And so even though I'm not like consuming the news every day, I'm still like making an impact in my community. I think that's even better than consuming the news. There are people out there consuming the news, complaining about things, and then yet they're not the ones doing anything. So I'd rather be the one that like, okay, well, I'm not consuming the news and I'm not keeping up with all the troubles and the woes in the world. I'm still doing my part to bring light and bring, peace and, money to people who need it. And so I think that's really an important part to speak about. So let me know if y'all have any questions or comments about that. Everyone's really quiet today. But I think that's just a big piece of being responsible and taking responsibility for our mindset. And fear is a human feeling. Like it's totally normal. It's just a natural response for us. And so for us to run away and avoid it really doesn't serve us. And I have a whole masterclass that I did on this a few months ago. So if you want any information about that, like let me know. It's about processing fear and working through emotions and basically just like working through things that don't serve us. And so, feeling that fear and still processing it, journaling, doing what you need to do to really work through that and get to neutral is just so important. And if we just ignore it or we try to Pollyanna it or we're like putting glitter on poo and just pretending like everything's perfectly fine and suppressing it all down, like that doesn't do anything for us. So really being sure to process those fear feelings, let them out, and just don't like suppress them, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So talking about this and having fear, I've seen business owners make decisions from places of fearcity, and that's a term that my coach uses that I love. It's fear and scarcity, and that is just not a place to make decisions from. There's the saying, it's like don't make long-term decisions based on short-term situations, and I think that's so applicable here. So really getting our mindset as the business owner and the CEO of being in a neutral place and seeing what are the facts and like, is this belief serving me or is it not serving me? And if it's not serving me, what are the other stories that I need to tell myself? So I think it's really important thinking about the words that you use, and that's just out loud and in your brain. Thinking about like what story you're telling yourself. So for me, the story is I could be scared, but like it doesn't serve my people. The business owners I work with need me, and they actually need my services more than ever when a situation like this occurs. Like they need help knowing their numbers and understanding and creating more revenue and profit. Like exactly what I do is perfect in this situation. So if I told myself a different story or shut down or, thought it was all going to hell in a handbasket, like that's actually the opposite of helpful for the business owners I work with, because they rely on me to really bring that neutrality to their business and, support them to ideate to get more revenue and maybe pivot their services or whatever that looks like. But me not offering what I do and being scared to offer it doesn't serve anybody, because people need your services now regardless of what the economy is doing or what, it looks like. So thinking of it from that lens. And then, I also think like if we got through COVID, if you had a business, during COVID and you got through that, like we can get through anything. Like I had 3 kids home during lockdown. My husband was working. I was still working. I'm like, if I can get through that, then like I can get through anything. And like I've been in business for 7 years. Like I'm going to keep going. This is just a blip on the radar. So, we know that 5-10 years from now, this will just be a blip on the radar and we get to show up and we keep going because this is actually a beautiful growth opportunity. And just from the last mindset piece is even if you don't believe that thoughts create things, that's what I believe. I think mindset is a huge piece because what we tell ourselves and the stories and the visions we have in our brain, like really become things. Even if you don't believe that, having a good mindset just makes your, experience better. I think back to my first year in business when I had a 5-month-old and I had just quit my job and I didn't have any clients. And I remember just like crying and being like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And the only thing I would change about that year would be how I felt and my mindset of, just being so like putting so much pressure on myself and being so worked up about it. So even if you don't believe that the mindset piece is actually going to change anything, at least it's going to give you a better experience. So let me know. That's kind of my mindset piece. I'm really into mindset stuff. So we'll go into the strategy part. So now is the time to lean into your strategy more than ever. This is not when we want to tap out. This is when we want to go all in. So whatever you're doing to attract clients or lead gen or connect with your audience, keep doing that because tapping out is really just going to lose your momentum. It's kind of like this building and building to create a pop moment. And when we just tap out, that's when everything kind of busts and we have to start back over. So, like I mentioned before, like whatever you do, I'm sure people need your products and services now more than ever. And so deciding that we show up and we keep showing them how we can support them is our strategy. Like our strategy really doesn't change in any economy. Like we keep doing the things that connect with our clients and customers and show that we solve the problem that they have. I know businesses that blew up during COVID. And they weren't even businesses that should have done really well. Like they were actually ones that were on, the whole, the industry was down. And definitely during those months that lockdown occurred and they had a brick and mortar, they definitely pivoted and did the online thing. And if they had events, they pivoted that. But I think it's just a really great example that like they serve the shit out of their clients. Like their clients love them so much that pandemic or not, they were still buying from them. They were still looking for them. They were still wondering, how do we get their stuff? How do we get their service? And I think that is so powerful. And just to give those business owners so much credit, like their mindset was solid. Like they didn't let it affect them. They didn't let it get them down. They were just unicorns. And I think it's just amazing. And I give them so much credit because they didn't just stick with their strategy, they pivoted and just dove in even more. And because their clients loved them so much and loved what they offered, it didn't matter that there was a pandemic going on. And then I also had a client who started his business during the pandemic because of the pandemic. And this is where we kind of talk about opportunity and being opportunistic. He had, look at my hair, he sticks out so much. He had connections with the PPE industry, so personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, coveralls, all that stuff. So he started a business just so he could get that from manufacturers to business owners. So he charged like 30% of his cost, which is way less than, usually business owners buy at cost and then mark it up 50%. He wasn't even marking it up 50%. He still made tons of money because he just sold massive amounts of it. And he had another business on, that he ran full time. And this was really just like an opportunity to use his connections to just get more stuff into the United States and get more masks and gloves in the hands of people that needed it. And he did so well. And that business has since closed down. It was like earlier this year. It was kind of sad, but it was kind of like, yay, like we don't need this as much. But that's an opportunity where he saw an opportunity to use the connections that he had and his resources to really help other people, which is totally different than, being opportunistic and the people that bought masks and were selling them for like crazy amounts of money. Like, that is not what we're talking about. I know that everyone here is in such integrity and such heart-centered, soulful entrepreneurs that, that is not the case. But when we can see like what we can do to serve people more, we can really tap into opportunities and growth opportunities. Another thing that comes up is back in early 2020, one of my friends works for a company that's just like a family-owned business, and they had lots of cash. And so when we had that tiny little recession, people were like slashing their prices on land and real estate, and we're in Charleston, so the prices were just like crazy expensive, and they were scared, and they were like putting everything on discount. And so the company that she worked for was going around and like buying up all these properties for cheap. And so, they were another type of person that they weren't being opportunistic. All these people were freaking out, putting their stuff on sale, and they had the cash to go buy it and really just like increase their net worth. Like, who knows what it's worth now, but the people who were slashing it and putting it on sale were just making a short-term decision or making a long-term decision on short-term circumstances. And so now they're probably kicking themselves, but this company did really well and was able to, kind of see that and use their cash to invest and, get more capital later on. So what I like to talk about too with this economy and with any economy is figuring out what works for you. Figuring out what really serves your people, what they really want, what problem you solve, speaking to that, and just pouring gasoline on that. Just going for what is working and lean in there. So getting super clear on everything, getting concise on our messaging, getting really concise on our offers, and just seeing that as the place to lean into. Like, obviously, I'm always trying to get concise on my messaging and my offers, and now more than ever, really just talking to the problem that we solve and letting people know that that's what we do and that's what we're here for. So that's part of that like strategy piece of just staying in your strategy and not tapping out. So let me know if you have questions or comments. I would love to hear from y'all. Everyone's quiet today, but that's okay. So the next piece is organize. So I think this is a great time to look at your money and your cash and how you're using it. I have a couple clients I'm working with now who they kind of came to me because of this economy and what was happening. They had massive results for the past few years with like very little effort on their end. So they had tons of cash coming in, and then as a result, they had cash going out, and they hadn't really paid attention to any of it because there was just so much coming in. They didn't really look at it. And so now it's like this beautiful growth opportunity because it's like, well, now's the time to kind of tighten up your cash and see what that looks like and really pay attention to it. And also that, they had no like lead gen. They had no sales actions that they were taking. Like, the work just flowed in. Like, one of them described it as drinking water from a fire hose. And like, that's great. And it's amazing that they had that for a few years, but that's not reality for most people for the entirety of their business. And so now it's like such a great opportunity to really set up those sales processes, set up how they're going to do, getting in touch with people who are potential referrals or following up with previous clients and, basically setting up something that most of us have to have anyway. And from the cash perspective, like, they might not take home less. We're just getting smarter with it. Like, we have one client that they just didn't even know, they were not paying attention to any of their cash. And so they might not even take home less money. They're just really getting smart about it and tightening it up and paying attention to what the cash is doing. So I think it's just like a really beautiful opportunity for them to really see, like, how do I build a sustainable and intentional business? Like, it was great, it was crazy for a few years, and now let's get like intentional about it so that, we feel like we have, feeling like we have control is just not really a thing. Like, we never really have control, but they have a process that's going to like set up for more people to come in and what it looks like to support those people. And then what does it look like when that engagement's over, and following up and really getting clear on that whole process. So, that's what I think is just such a great opportunity. So, I don't believe we should pull out all of our money of our team and investing in ourselves. And I think it's actually the time to double down on that, because so many people want to freak out and bury their head in the sand. And, I'm really working on mindset and strategies. And so, this is a time when like people are coming to me for more work or, to help them get more work, because it's just like such a great growth opportunity with organization and getting clear on their strategy. And also this is kind of goes with organizing, but it's also a mindset piece, and it's thinking about our expenses. I just mentioned with that client, like we're getting really clear on his expenses and knowing those and making sure that they are serving us. And I know we can only cut costs a certain amount before we sacrifice service and everything else. So I don't think we need to cut all of our costs. I think it's great to really be grateful for our expenses. So obviously be smart, make sure we're not paying for software we don't need, make sure that we're paying for the things that we need and support us and that create more revenue. And then for those expenses we do have, really being grateful for them. I had a client who has subcontractors, and she pays them a percentage of the revenue that they generate. And so, every month we'd be on our calls and she's like, oh my gosh, I spent how much money on subcontractors? And I'm like, yeah, but you pay them 50%. So look at the 50% piece that you're getting from that. And that was a really easy lift for you. And yes, you have software you have to pay for. And yes, you have taxes and business license and overhead stuff. But isn't that amazing? You got thousands of dollars for them doing the work. And it's just a different mindset piece. And so, gas is expensive, groceries are expensive. And so whenever I'm buying those things, I really like to think about all the people and all the infrastructure and all the work. Hi, Erica. Thanks for watching. Be sure to drop a comment or question as we're going through. Anyone that does, I'm giving away a masterclass at the end of this. But we're talking about the organizing piece of this and, expenses and making sure your expenses are in alignment with what you're offering and making sure that they're generating more revenue for you and being grateful for all those expenses. Like I said, when I pump gas, pumping gas is not something that I love to do. But when I'm pumping gas, I'm looking around the gas station holy shit, somebody built this. Somebody put gas underneath the ground so that I could just drive up and put it in my car. All these things had to come into place with things underneath the concrete and people having to deliver it at weird times of the day and the truckers driving overnight. It kind of blows my mind when I'm pumping gas thinking about it. I don't like pumping gas, but it makes such a difference in how I think about it. And same thing with the groceries. I can just go to the grocery store and buy what I need. And yeah, it might be $5 for some bread, but thank goodness I have stuff for my kids to take in their lunches. And somebody had to bring that to the grocery store and put it on the shelf. And there's the girl working at the checkout counter who probably has to see people all day and, doesn't really, I don't know, maybe she loves it, but maybe people are rude or grumpy or whatever. So just being so thankful for all those expenses and the people that make it happen. Also, I always have large dental expenses. And I'm so glad I live in a country where I can get my teeth fixed when I need to, and they can give me pain medicine to numb it up, so I don't have to worry about it being painful. So I think it's just so easy to get wrapped into that spiral, and this is kind of the mindset piece, but really thinking of it as being grateful and flipping the script. So it's all about the stories we tell us. Are they serving us? If not, let's change the story. And so that is this piece of it with the expenses and just being grateful for everything that we pay for and all the conveniences we have in our life. So I think I've gone into that one enough. So, I'm saying, I'm continuing to invest in my team. I'm not cutting back on any of our bookkeepers, social media manager. I still have my one-to-one coach. Those things are what allow me to grow and support my clients and get new clients, because I can't do all of those things all at once. So, I just want you to look at that and really still going all in on your team and what they bring to the table is just so important. And also that is really helping the economy. When we are paying other people, they're going out and they're buying stuff. They're going out and, putting the money back into circulation. I'm still paying for my kids' school and the tuition. And so those teachers have money and they can go out and do this. And I think it's just so much of what we talked about earlier with the run on the banks and people freaking out. When we pull back for no other reason than fear and scarcity, we're perpetuating the problem. We're making it worse. I think back to COVID lockdown and our school closed down and we still paid, hi Sarah, thanks for joining us. Yay, glad to have you here. During lockdown, we still paid tuition so that the teachers could get paid. And that was part of that community coming together so that we could we would almost worsen the problem if it was like, okay, now these people aren't getting paid and these people are getting laid off. And like, it just kind of makes more of a ripple effect in the wrong direction. So I think, oh, my Be Real thing just popped up. We don't need to be real right now. But I think it just perpetuates the problem. And so when we start freaking out and pulling back, those people that we're paying aren't able to go out in the community and spend money, and it's just a ripple effect. So that's another piece of it. Let's see. And I think this is a great opportunity to really get clear on any tweaks or changes to your offers. So I have a client that has a high ticket offer. And now that some of those transactions that used to need his offer are going down, we're tweaking it. We're getting it a smaller, kind of more maintenance offer where it's not like, okay, you do this activity once every 5 or 10 years and you need a service. Well, now it's kind of like you need this on a regular basis. So I think it's like I said, beautiful growth opportunity, and taking that mindset of, okay, how can I serve my people in a different way? Like, it doesn't have to mean you have to like pivot your business or change everything or change your strategy or your model. It could really just be like, okay, what else do they need from me? That's kind of more of where they're at. Like, if they're not going to make this huge purchase right now, like, where can I meet them? And I think that's where like the work that I'm doing with people is so powerful, and can make such a difference, is because they don't have to do it alone. I have such a background of working with other businesses and seeing what other people are offering and what they're doing. And it's just so interesting and valuable to have a different perspective. So that's kind of it for the organizing piece. So we'll talk about implement here. This is when I was talking about people can get really rich in these situations because people put things on sale. They freak out, they discount everything, and other people can really go through and, you know, really make lots of money. And we think about stocks, and I'm not, you know, anyone to take investment advice from or anything, but really we can look at, you know, when there is a downturn in the economy, a lot of things are on sale and discounted. So like, you can buy stocks that may be normally out of your price range, but you can get them for cheaper, and then they're going to increase in value. Same thing with the land we talked about earlier. You know, people were making scarcity, fearful decisions and putting, you know, property here in Charleston on sale for a major discount. And this company that had cash went and bought them up. So we can really think about how we can use it to our advantage in a way that's in integrity and, you know, isn't opportunistic or taking advantage of anyone. And I think that this is also a great time to, in COVID, I feel like I'm talking about COVID a lot, but COVID showed us that like really no one is safe. Like, working for a big company wasn't any safer than working for yourself. And I think the economy and a recession is the exact same thing. I think being an entrepreneur and a business owner is actually a better situation to be in, because we get to call the shots and we get to make those tweaks along the way. Whereas if you're working for a big company, it's really hard for them to try to turn the ship when something changes. And so as business owners, we're getting like real-time information from our clients, from our customers, from our people, and we are able to like, you know, pivot and tweak and turn and support them, you know, just like that, whereas a big company isn't able to do that. So I think that this is just like, as business owners, like, we are such in a great situation, and we have so much more control than if we did working at a big company and what that would look like. And in this economy and in any economy, we need to make our own safety. We need to be really clear on how we support our people, what problem we solve, what our sales process looks like, what action, you know, sales actions we're taking every single day, what kind of follow-up we're doing, what kind of testimonials we get, what our clients are saying, what client referrals we're getting. Like, all of that is just part of being a business owner, and we get to build that in any economy, no matter what. And it's just very important to do now more than ever. Like I mentioned with the clients before that just enjoyed amazing success for years before that without having any systems or processes around that, and just being in a position now where they're like, oh shit, like, we got to come up with something. And they're kind of freaking out, but it's also just like such a growth opportunity and something that they would probably need to do anyway, just being a business owner. Like, if you're going to be in business for decades, you need to have those things set up in your business. That's just a non-negotiable. So I think this economy and what it's doing is only bringing that to light. And I think it's great to weed out people who aren't that serious about business. And I don't want to sound like a jerk or anything, but there are people that, you know, are just like, yeah, it'd be fun to be a business owner. Yeah, that sounds cool. But like, they might be taking business away from you, but they're not really serious about it. So I think it's just a great way to like, yeah, if you're really in business for the long term and setting up your systems and processes, you're the one that's going to come out on the other end, and then let it weed out the people that aren't very serious about it, or just did it because they thought it was fun, or, you know, just needed something to do, or, you know, needed an excuse to quit their job, but didn't really want to own a business, you know. So I think that's just like a great way to think of it too. Like, obviously I don't want anyone to be put out of business or anything. That's not what I'm saying, but I think it really helps like decipher who's in business for like true, like organic, soulful, really being of service purposes, and just the people that are like, oh, it seems fun, maybe I can make a quick buck. There's definitely some Facebook groups I'm on where it definitely seems like people are just trying to make a quick buck, and how can I make more money before Christmas, and, you know, all this stuff. So it's like, it's kind of okay if the people who aren't in it for the long haul aren't in it for the long haul. And this is just kind of bringing that to light and bringing it to the surface a little bit more. Let's see. So that's all I have to say about that. So we'll wrap it up here soon. But some journal prompts I want to give you and some takeaways. I really want you to list down all the things you're worried about. It's basically a fear inventory. I don't know if any of you have done a fear inventory before. I love to do it. If I'm fearful about something, I challenge myself to write down like 20 or 25 things that are coming up for me. And I state it as in, I fear blah, blah, dot, dot, dot. And just keep writing and really going and digging for the thing under the thing. And I'll use myself as an example. I had this client recently that came on, and he was kind of freaking out about the economy. And so I kind of felt anxious about the economy. And what I really did some digging around and working with my coach was that, like, it wasn't the economy I was worried about. It was more of like supporting him and trying to get him results as fast as possible. And once I saw that, like, that was really what I was afraid of, like, it felt so much better. Like, it just felt so much lighter and better. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I could see what was really coming up. And so even if you don't dig out something that you didn't think you were afraid of, doing a fear inventory really helps take the charge away. So if you do that like every day for a week, you're eventually going to get to the point where you're writing and you're like, actually, this isn't even a thing anymore. Like, yeah, I can see how I used to be scared of it, but now I'm just really not. So I really invite you to do that. And then also thinking about, what do you make the economy mean? So think about what your current thoughts are. Are they serving you? And create a new story. So we kind of talked about this earlier, but, you know, thinking about the fact that, like, yeah, my services are actually more in demand now than ever. Like, when the economy's going great and everything's easy for everybody and they have money coming in, like, they don't need my services as much. But now that, like, things might be tightening up a little bit, they actually need a sales process. They actually need to know their numbers. They actually need, like, some strategy and knowing how to create, you know, social media content and get new leads. Like, all these things are what I do and love to do and are so much more important when their clients and customers are tapering off. And so that's the mindset that I'm taking with it. And so think for you how that you can apply that to your business, and how, you know, what you do is so important now more than ever. And then the last thing I want to talk about is creating a mantra or an affirmation. Obviously, we don't want to just Pollyanna everything and slap some affirmations on stuff and just pretend like everything's okay. Like, that's why I really want you to do that fear inventory. And I'm obviously not coaching everyone one-to-one, but doing that fear inventory and letting everything come up that needs to come up. And we get to create a new story. I do a breath work app. It's called Pause, and they have one about, like, I don't remember, about uncertainty. But basically the mantra is, I find possibility in the unknown. And I just love that one. I don't know if that, you know, if you like that or not, but, you know, find whatever speaks to you, but come up with a mantra that's like something that you can cling on to when your brain starts doing the downward spiral that our brains do because it's trying to keep us safe. Coming up with a mantra that's kind of like skirt, like stop, just stop. And that's mine. You know, I find possibility in the unknown. Like, I can't control everything around me. I'm doing the best I can. I've got my systems and processes set up. I've got this set up, you know, I've got all these things, and, like, I still find possibility in the unknown. You know, and just knowing that I can create and, you know, have creativity in the unknown, I think is just so powerful. So if you have questions, let me know. Those are the takeaways I really want y'all to have. And I think this has just been a great conversation, and so excited to share it with you. And there are multiple ways to work with me, but if any of this was speaking to you today, I invite you to book a Get Honest with Your Strategy to Scale call. So like I mentioned before, like business owners come to me when they are not knowing where their sales come from, not knowing how to increase their sales, not knowing how to get visible online, not knowing how to do sales conversations, not knowing what to charge or how to create their packages and prices. Like all of that stuff is stuff that I love supporting people with. And so doing a free call is just such a first great step that I can really provide you some value, get some eyes and another brain on your business, spend 30 minutes together so that you can walk away and feel good about some action steps that you can take. Because in any economy, we need to have all of these things in place. And now more than ever, people need your services and they need to know about it. So that's it. I think, I'm the best person to support you because I've got the number side and I've got just the behind the scenes of so many businesses. I know business, I know strategy, I know how to put yourself out there. It's something I've done building my own multi-six-figure business. So that's kind of it for today. So I would love to get questions, comments. I think this was just such a great conversation. I really appreciate all of y'all for being here and showing up and being amazing. And I'll see you next week. I was like, do we have one next week? Actually, no. Check my calendar. Next week is Thanksgiving, so we don't have one. But the week after, we will have our Masterclass. So we'll start having promos for that coming out this week. So anyway, have a great rest of your day. So good to see y'all. Thanks for joining.